Hey guys, welcome back to the Max Spence Business Podcast. Today I have a very special guest, but before I go into that, if you guys like the content I'm putting out, the people I'm interviewing, please like, subscribe, leave a review. It helps out a ton with the podcast. If you can go over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, that helps out a ton as well. So without further ado, today's guest is Mark Smith. So he's a high-ticket sales coach, host of the 7 to 2 Mindset Investor Podcast, and motivational speaker. It's great having you on the show, Mark.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Awesome. So yeah, jumping into this, why don't you give a little bit of a background for people that maybe don't know who you are? How did you get into sales? How did you get into podcasting? You're a real estate investor as well. So how did that all sort of happen?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I'll try to condense this all. A lot's happened. I'm gonna try to condense over 25 years. My background is in high ticket sales. So I amassed conservatively over $80 million worth of sales in my tenure with an organization prior to. My colleagues beg to differ, and they tell me it's probably close to $120 million, but I like to be a little bit more conservative. But the thing is I started in high ticket sales at a very early age. I started in high ticket sales at the age of 21 years old. And it was just a whole different world as in medical device sales. So we focus on specifically on high-end, so you're looking at life support systems, so ventilators, critical care devices, anesthesia machines, critical care monitors. And really in that space, I was coming in at 21 years old, and I was going against really 2 or 3 individuals in that sector because it's such a niche area. And the buying cycle for these type of items are typically once every 12 years. Especially with Canadian socialized medicine. So you really need to set yourself apart. And being socialized medicine, end of the day, it's going to come down to the dollars and cents because of taxpayer money. So how do you navigate this waters when there's sharks are there circulating and so forth? So I quickly learned the importance of relationships to really set myself apart. And we could talk about this later, but it was actually the biggest win I had. The biggest win I had was a deal I lost for about I think it was like $60,000, and that loss that I call a win was what allowed me to get over $80 million of sales. So we can talk about that in a bit.
Yeah.
High ticket sales. So I've been in that high ticket sales environment since I was 21 years old. I love it. I love the adrenaline rush about it. But the thing I enjoy the most about it is the fostering of relationships. A lot of people are in it, they're in it, they hit it and they get out type of thing, and whichever pun people want to look at that. This is a long distance, this is a long marathon, and your reputation will precede you. It's a game of integrity. It's a game of character. And so through my tenure of high ticket sales, I mean, I lived in Edmonton, Alberta. I was born and raised in Edmonton, moved down to Chicago. I lived in Chicago for about 6 years. I was responsible for our U.S. business operation. I was the director of international business development and the director of clinical applications, which was more of a service we offered with the high ticket sales side. And then moved back to Canada, I want to say, was it 4 years ago? And it really wasn't until I really went into the real estate side, probably about 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago, And now I'm doing this. This is what I do.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So one thing I noticed there was really interesting is that you got into high ticket sales at 21, which is like you said is a very, very young age, right? Because the majority of people are still in university. Like, so did you get into it while you're still at university, or did you go to college, graduate, and then just go into sales, or how did that sort of happen?
Yeah. So what happened I had actually already graduated. So I had graduated in the field of respiratory therapy. And what happened is I happened to be working a shift. In fact, I got called in for that shift. I just got back from Puerto Rico that day, actually. And I got called in to do a shift. Said, hey, you know what? I spent quite a bit of money on this trip. Let me go in there and let's see if I can get a few hours in at the hospital. So I happened to go in there. And at the same time, the person at the time was actually going over a medical device that the hospital was actually had just purchased. I think he was antsy to go home, but I'm very passionate to learn. So I have this thirst for knowledge, and I just asked him, do you mind going over this with me? And from there, we hit it off. And at that point in time, he asked me if I'd like to, have I ever considered medical sales? And at the time, I was planning to go back to school. I was going to do medicine. And I said, well, hey, I'm 21. What do I have to lose? Life's biggest risk isn't taking one. So why not? So I hopped on a plane, went to their corporate office. And what I was told was prior to me getting that position, there was, I think, 16 or 17 interviews with people with lots of varying experience and so forth. They offered me a job on the spot. And that's how it began.
Okay, wow. So that's actually super interesting that it's just like that coincidence. You come back from Puerto Rico and you just you meet this guy that's selling the equipment. You ask him a few questions, and he just likes you. And then next thing you know, you're on a flight over there and you get the job. So that's something really interesting. So diving into that and giving a little bit more, advice and knowledge, because the majority of my listeners are in the early 20s, right? And they'd probably want to hear a little bit more about how you actually closed and got that job, right? Competing against, like you said, 15 to 16 other applicants who maybe have, maybe more years of sales experience or, varying degrees of knowledge, right? So how did you actually close that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I came in and I had zero sales experience. I had zero sales experience. And the actual fact is a lot of people think they can't do sales. Everybody is a salesperson. I don't care who you are. Everybody is a salesperson. It's the art of persuasion. Someone may say, hey, I'm an introvert. How can I be a salesperson? But if you get to choose what you guys are making for dinner tonight and you're in a partnership or relationship, guess what? You just sold. Okay? So a lot of people think they can't sell. At the end of the day, I mean, I went in there and I went there with complete transparency. And what I watch for is the people that show up, the people that are willing to take risks. Because if you want to get in the high ticket sales game, this is a lifestyle. This is not a job. Okay. It's a lifestyle. You have to, be ready to go at all times. Things happen. So my advice for anybody that's in their early 20s, how do I get it? Is show up, be present. It's not who you know, but who knows you. See, I was blessed in that although that the position was offered to me, the company just didn't offer me. They had actually looked at my background. They had actually contacted my peers and finding out what I was doing, my work ethic, and just be real. Like I can't emphasize that enough. A lot of times we get really nervous about a position. Don't pretend who you're not. Just be who you are. And based on that merit, you will get a good job.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so just like showing up and pretty much just being transparent instead of being like, the sort of the mentality, which I don't really like, which is like the fake it till you make it sort of mentality. I think if you come in there and you're completely transparent, I think that's the best way to build really great relationships with people, right?
Absolutely. And the other thing I'll tell people in their early 20s that want to get into this is find out, like, first and foremost, get an understanding of what high ticket sales is, first of all. Number two is find out which industry in high ticket sales you want to be in. So, for example, if you want to get into the pharma world, well, when the doors get lifted again with COVID and there's conferences again, hey, go to these conferences, walk around the exhibit hall. Walk around the exhibit hall. You don't have to go listen to any lectures. Walk around the exhibit hall, go and meet people and just say, hey, I'm here, I'm looking for work in high ticket sales. Who can I speak to? And you know what? A lot of people are entitled these days saying, hey, I went to school, I get $100,000. It doesn't work like that. You got to earn your keep. So for those that really want to get in, you go to those exhibit halls. Can I speak? Who's the manager here? And you basically tell, hey, this is what I am. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm going to get in high ticket sales. This is the value I provide you. I'm hungry. I'm here to show you how hungry I am. And on top of that, do you guys offer a co-op program? You don't have to pay me, but I'll be there. You tell me what's needed. It's amazing how quickly you go up the ranks.
Yeah.
How many of those stories have we heard? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say like that's phenomenal advice, is actually going to these conferences, and that works like with any industry, right? Going to these conferences, speaking, and what you said earlier, which was a huge piece of advice, was it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And like going to these conferences, meeting you meet a director, you meet a manager, and they just like you. When it comes down to the interview, like you might have somebody that has like an MBA or something like that, but they don't really like them that much, and there's you. That they might actually choose you just because you've had that past experience with them, and they just know who you are a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The other thing as well is if someone wants to get into the high ticket sales, they have to have an understanding with themselves. Is do not look at the salary. Salary is meaningless. If you want to show someone that you're a shark, You do your compensation based on merit, on results.
Yeah.
You come in here saying, "Hey, I'll accept a low base. That's not a problem. But when I deliver, I want to get paid because guess what? When I win, that means the company's winning and vice versa." A lot
Yeah.
of people come into high ticket sales thinking, "Oh, I want to get the high salary." You're just trading your time for money, and anybody's replaceable, but merit is not replaceable. Bringing results is not replaceable.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. So now moving that to like I can tell already that you have a very good, like you're very good at speaking, and like that's a key part of being able to be good at sales, right? Is being very contextual with the how you talk and stuff. So like were you always naturally good at that, or did you, like in your first few years of actually getting to the high ticket sales, did you have to build that, or did it sort of just come naturally to you?
It's mastery. There's books on this. It talks about, you got. It's all about mastering a skill. So my skill set's been mastered over. I've been able to, and mastery is doing something over 10,000 hours. So when I first came out of the gates, no, I mean I had to learn, but I had to drop my ego aside, and I used to ask my customers, "Is hey, you know what? Why do you buy from that person? What is it that they do that brings like? I'm just curious to know what do I need to do here?" Instead of saying knocking them down, you're actually giving other people respect. And so, as far as articulation and speaking and so forth, it's confidence. No one's born with confidence. Confidence is a skill set, and a skill set is done by taking action. And there's gonna be a lot of times, like I've been there where I've been in presentations where I blanked out because of the stress. But it's what you do after the fact. And how do I make sure that I prevent that from happening again? So that's going to be the key thing. Always saying there's always room for improvement. So, as much as I've been able to be very successful in high ticket sales, I'm still studying high ticket sales.
Oh, okay. Okay. And that's very interesting. Do you study that just because there's a passion for it, or because you understand that there's like you were saying, is that sales is everything that you do, right? And even real estate, right? It's like selling is for raising capital, or closing on a property, all that sort of stuff is still sales. So is that just something that is just ingrained with you, and you just continue to learn?
Yeah, I'm extremely passionate about mindset, which I know we're going to be talking about. To be successful in sales, it's all in your head. And so my passion when it comes to sales is the behavioral and psychological aspects of the sales. It's not the CRMs, it's not the follow up aspect. It's about your consumer only listens to one radio station, which is so what's in it for them, or what's in it, right? So what's in it? So WIF, whatever it is, right? So they're gonna be listening to their own radio station. So it's understanding that level of empathy and to talk to someone at that level. So there's a science behind this. It's a science. Sales is communication. Sales is communication. Sales is the art of persuasion. So if I'm talking to you, for example, Max, about a product here, you're in anyone's natural response is going to be they're trying to sell me on something. So our amygdala in our brain is already our tripwire basically saying, hey, this guy's up to something. There's fear. There's fear. That's how we're designed. So if I'm coming very hard with something at you, it's not a difference of that. There's a difference in that education between us. No, the difference is, and I'm actually talking to you, the brain that's working for you at that moment in time, saying this guy's trying to screw me. So that's your fear for a response. So I'm actually talking to your crocodile brain. There's actually great books on this, and I'm actually coming from a level of neocortex. So I need to be able to bring it down to get that acceptance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as you can see where I'm going with this about you asking about my articulation of my words and so forth, it's that softer approach. It's gaining trust. It's empathy. The biggest mistake, actually, I'll rephrase that. The biggest asset you need or anyone needs to be successful in high ticket sales is listening. If you're a poor listener, you will fail miserably.
Ah, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. So actually talking about that, going into a deeper depth of like the basics of sales, and you talked a lot about like like bringing their, like people are nervous when you're trying to sell them a product or something, or they're stressed, right? Or they feel like you were saying like, oh, this person's trying to screw me over, which I've seen when I've been trying to, in different instances when I've been in like sort of a sales role.
Yep.
I found it very interesting that I was like, when I was sort of had the mindset of like, oh, I need to sell this product and trying to push that on somebody, it was actually like it had no result. But when I approached them in a sort of different manner of like sort of like friendship and wanting to understand them more and not really trying to sell the product at all or the service, is when I usually find out like it was like, oh, this is like they're actually much more willing to accept this product, right?
Hmm.
So can you actually talk about that in more detail? How to get better at that, right? Is it like,
Sure.
reading books? Is it practicing, different methods and stuff? But what are some of the basics of actually selling?
You know what? Like I said before, it's listening is the most crucial thing. Okay, so you need to be listening. Everybody wants to be heard. The most successful salespeople I know are the ones that talk less, and they know when to talk. Okay, so one things I do is I tell people is that when you're starting a relationship with someone, whether it be a sales or whatever it is, some salespeople will say, "Hey, we're problem solvers, we're solution providers." How can you be a solution provider if your consumer hasn't told you what their problem is? If someone's an alcoholic and I tell someone they're an alcoholic and they haven't professed or admitted that they are one, there's going to be a fight because you're saying I got a problem, and so what you need to do is you need to expose the problem, and you got to be real with people and saying, hey, this is the way I see it from my lens, and correct me if I'm wrong. That's how I start with people. And until they expose what the problem is, then you have them in your hand, and that's when you can provide them a solution. Whether it's acceptable or not doesn't matter. So you need to lure them into that conversation. You have to be empathetic. The consumer, the customer needs to feel like they're your only priority. So it's how you make that customer feel. So taking notes. Hey, Mr. or Mrs. So and so, do you mind if I take out my notepad and take notes while you're speaking? That does two things. One is it's making sure you're not missing anything, but most importantly, it gives the customer the feel like, hey, this person's actually giving me their undivided attention. It's a tactic. Other things that can be done, like it's like going and buying a suit off the rack versus going to a high-end tailor-made suit place. I've done this exercise with salespeople before. So I take my tailor-made suit, say, here, try my suit jacket. They're putting it on, or like, oh, it feels a little, because it's size for me. It's okay. How does that feel? Well, I don't know if I like it or not. Okay, give it back to me. I actually take the coat and I put it back on them myself. So I put it around their arms, clean out the corners, and around the arm parts, make it smooth. How does it feel now? Actually, it feels better. It's the same jacket. The difference is how I made them feel.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. Yeah. Yeah, like actually talking about that, that's super interesting. That just that little service that you did change the perception of the buyer, right? That's crazy.
And how many people are going that extra mile? Did it take long? No. All I had to do was straighten out the back seam.
Yeah, yeah. So now moving to, I want to talk about quickly because there might be some people listening that are in different at university right now or just getting out, and they might be thinking, well, I'm not in sales, so this podcast might not pertain to me to that much. But if they're listening, so like, is sales something you always want to learn no matter what industry you're in? Like from your personal experience, Pat, for the past 20 years of being in business, people that are like, let's say somebody who's not in a sales role, that is in some type of, like, let's say accounting or I don't know, like some other type of position. Did they get further in their career because they had better sales skills? Is that something that you saw at all, or was there anything like that?
Um, Again, sales is communication. So if someone says to themselves they're not a salesperson, what they've just accepted, they've accepted defeat because you've already told your brain you're not a salesperson. And guess what? You're not going to find a good job. Plain and simple. Because your brain's already going to be repelling, subconscious mind. So what's very, very important is that anyone that comes out of school and you have to apply for a job, guess what? You have to sell yourself because there's probably another 50 people applying for the same job.
Mm-hmm.
So what differentiates you? What value do you offer someone instead of choosing a rest? Because on paper, everybody looks the same.
Yeah. Yeah. No. That's very true. Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
And let
So,
me ask you. I'll put this out there too. What do you call someone that graduates medical school with the lowest possible grade?
I'm not too sure.
A doctor.
True.
A doctor. They're the same a doctor. They graduate lower in the class. So what difference does someone make that's lower in the class to someone on top? They're still the same stature. So you have to differentiate yourself.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. It's like the once you have that title, that doesn't like there's so many people that have the exact same title, let's say for electricians or something, but if you're able to sell or like let's say a carpenter or something like let's if you're able to communicate better and communicate the value of your service, your business is going to go a lot further, whether you're working for a company or you actually start your own practice. Okay, yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
that makes a lot of sense. So now I want to jump to pretty much the mistakes that new salespeople make, or when people first approach selling, right? They're like a lot of people like I still need lots of practice in it, but when I first got into sort of sales, it was like my sort of ideal idea of selling was like the sort of like fast, not like fast paced, but very like hard, like trying to like ram the product in front of their face and stuff like that. And I learned very quickly, I was like, that's the worst way to sell something, right?
Hmm.
So, what are some other mistakes that people that you've seen, like when you've been training new salespeople, have made, and how have you sort of corrected them?
Hmm. Yeah, there's lots, man. Number one is ego. Is ego. I've run into all the time where I've actually had to train people and their ego got in their own way, and it's because they yeah we got, and they would just go back and do the same thing over and over again. And it was just very, very frustrating. Number two, and most important, is they don't listen. I tell people, like, I'm not sure if you've heard any of my other podcasts on the 7-2 Mindset Investor or my YouTube channel. I'm pretty raw and real, so I'll be careful on your channel. But the biggest mistake people make is they don't shut up and listen. Usually there's an adjective in there. And I've gone into deals where I've stepped out of the room and I'll ask the salesperson, how do you think that went? It went amazing. Okay, how did it go amazing? Well, they want to buy this from me. They want to buy this from me. They want to buy this from me. It's like, interesting. Because that wasn't what I heard. And they say, what do you mean? It's because I didn't hear the customer talk at all. You were doing all the talking. I said, you have to recognize it's, you know what? If you're in a lot of people get into sales and they get into sales and they go back to ego. They want to hear themselves talk. If you're going there, you want to hear yourself talk, you've already blown the deal. You've already blown the deal. You need to hear what that customer wants. People talk too much when they're trying to sell. What you need to do is you need to, there's an acronym. Which book is it now? It's an amazing book. Oh man, I can't think of it right now. The acronym is STRONG. Number one, you got to set the frame. You got to tell the story. You got to reveal the intrigue. Okay? You got to offer the deal. You got to nail the hook point, and you got to get the deal. So what that is there's a lot that happens before you even get there. You got to set the frame. You got to tell the story, because you got to change the narrative, because people are going to come in, they have different things. And remember, they got their backup already. They already know you want to sell something. Okay? So I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but there's a lot behind it versus just walking in and saying, "Oh, I read the brochure and I can now sell this." No, that's not going to be enough. You're going to have a different customer. Are they analytical? Are they more personal? So the thing is, when you're setting the frame, it's about control of the environment. It's control of the environment. As soon as someone says to me, "Well, I need the data, I need this." The data is this, and I give them a simple sentence. This is the price, this is the gross, this is the revenue. Before we can even move on, we need to know if we can do business together. What that does is it takes control, because what happens at that point? People want in. See, sales, a lot of people think sales, you need to be knowledgeable. One of my mentors asked me this really early on and said, how much of sales do you think is knowledge versus passion? I said 50-50. He goes, you're wrong. It's 99.9% passion. What people are doing is they're buying into what you believe in. They're not believing into the product, but they're believing into your belief into something. They want a piece of it. So what happens is if You're not listening to your customer. You're not in tune. I mean, use, like I call it, the pregnant pause. Drop that point and shut up. And for me, I'm very extroverted. It's taught me a long time. I bite my tongue. I'll literally take my hands and I'll put them underneath my thighs. And it's so uncomfortable, but the next person that flinches usually is what's going to give up the deal.
Ah, okay,
There's
okay.
there's just so many strategies that I've used, um, and um, and again, it's about controlling the narrative. It's setting the frame. And if so, to answer your question, what are big mistakes? Is not setting the frame. It's not doing your homework. It's not preparing for that meeting. If that meeting, if that meeting for you is worth $50,000, are you just going to half-ass it?
No.
You're going to do everything in your power to understand who they are, who they're connected to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that is great advice, is really having, framing the meeting before it happens. So like I also heard, can't remember where I was listening. I don't know if this was a podcast or maybe it was a book, but do you actually run through different scenarios in your head before that meeting? Like
Mhm.
I read in a book or something that was like, great sales professionals or great, entrepreneurs or leaders and stuff, that they're always running through scenarios. So is that something that adds like, an extra sort of benefit? Like every sort of meeting, are you running through like, oh, what if they say this, this objection comes up for this, and are you just always having those sort of like battles in your head? Are
All the
you?
time, man. All the time. And how it happens is through confidence. The more you're out there, you need to adapt or you're going to die. If you have a meeting and they say, "Oh, your person's not here, but present to us anyways." Well, no, because you got to close that person and never ever ever rely on someone else to do the job for you. You can only trust yourself to get the job done. So, if you have a meeting with someone and they bail on you and they said, "Oh, just present it to us." No, I can't do that. I could be here for 15 minutes for you to figure this out, or let's just call it a day. Take that power back. Take
Ah,
that
okay.
power back. If
Yeah.
someone goes and rips your business card and you see it from a distance, don't go to the door and say, "Okay, this is done." Ask for your business card back. Watch what happens. Who controls the narrative?
You you do. Yeah.
Control the narrative.
And is that like is that what you say is a key, and also key of sailing, right? Is like always being in control, right? Of the
You have
scenario,
to be in
no matter.
control
Okay.
because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to derail you. And they're not doing it maliciously. That's just how their behaviors are. Some are going to be very analytical. Some are going to be very time sensitive. Hey, okay, you got 15 minutes. That's okay. I only got 12 minutes. Take it away from them.
True. That's awesome. And then another thing I've sort of seen a bit is like I found that people that sell a lot better too, and that I've noticed, are also a little bit more like sort of witty and comedic when they sell and stuff. They're much more funny, and I think that, like, from what I've personally seen, is that probably plays into the fact of, like, that person liking the salesperson more, just because you're making them laugh, you're making them feel comfortable, right?
Mhm.
Instead of like being like sort of like an analytical seller or something, is like, and this is probably, I don't know if you agree with this, is like you sort of have to match what your personality, like your selling type, to that person, right?
Always. And that's why it's so important to do your homework beforehand. Geez, I mean, if I know my customer's name, I'm going to go on Facebook the night before and get an insight on their family life. Again, I have to be different than the next person. I'm going to go on their LinkedIn and see who they're connected with. Maybe there's someone that's connected with them that I'm connected with too, and saying, "Hey, have you called on this person before?"
Ah,
It's your
okay.
allies are going to be the ones that are going to help you out. Forget about your friends and competitors. It's going to be your allies.
Hmm. Hmm. So now moving to, I want to talk quickly about, selling different products, like selling a $10 product to selling a five. Like you've been in the high ticket sales industry, but is there a difference between selling, like, there isn't really a difference between selling a $10 product and a $5 million product?
No, because you're not selling a difference of the product. What you're doing is you're selling yourself.
When salespeople like, because that's something that I've sort of seen and sort of personally dealt with is like when you're selling something and let's say it's like, you know, the numbers there's more zeros on it. It's much more, it just seems much more stressful. And you're just like, why is this more like why is this more stressful? It's like the exact same process I was doing before, but now it's just a lot more stressful, right? And how have you trained salespeople to sort of get over that, right? That fear of saying like, you know, jumping from let's say like, you know, a $50,000 deal to like, you know, a $500,000 deal.
Treat them all the same. They're all important because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you don't get a $50,000, you don't get it all affects your bottom line. Treat everyone with the same, treat every deal with the same amount of respect. There's a great book, The Compound Effect. There's a great book called The Slight Edge. Okay, and here's an example of it. If every day I want to improve myself, so every day, forget about that. Like let's just say every day I eat a chocolate bar, or let's just say I eat a full pizza every day. I may not see the difference right away, but over time, I'm going to be extremely overweight and very sick. So the same thing with this. It doesn't matter if I'm talking about a $50,000 deal or a $5 deal. If every day I'm working on the same element, you're going to hit that hockey stick and that's how you're mastering. It's the mastery.
Ah, okay. And then to build confidence around that, like that's a huge thing, right? In sales is having that confidence to sell that product or service. Like, how do you build that? And that's one of the hardest things I've sort of seen and personal dealt with, like, you know, with different things in selling and podcasting and other stuff is like building that self-confidence in performing, right? So how do you build that, and what techniques have you used for yourself personally when you were going through like the beginning process of your business journey, and also when you're at the higher level and teaching that process down to you know, the next generation of sales?
For sure. I get angry at myself if I blow. It's the same anger level I have. Not anger, but I don't like to lose. And so whether I'm losing a $50,000 deal or a $500,000 or a $5 deal, it's a loss is a loss is a loss. A win is a win is a win. Okay? So that's how I frame my mind for that. Okay? So anything I'm going after, I'm going into battle for. And I'm going there with the premise that I'm providing value to someone. I'm not there to rip someone off. If they're not getting the value for whatever my product is, then I don't want to be doing it because that's not the intention. The intention is I'm doing a service for them. Okay? Number 2 is you have to believe in your product. A lot of people are out there talking about things they don't even believe in. You can sense that a mile a minute. People know that, and they know you're intentional or you're just there for a paycheck. Okay? Other things you have to do is, like I said, if you're scrubbing someone's social media, seeing that kind of stuff. Even presentations. I used to practice my presentations in front of a mirror. Be ready. Don't memorize a presentation. Just have the bullet points and be able to adapt based on the person that you're in front of. So one thing I do, and I still do this, if I don't have enough information going into a meeting about people's personalities, this is how I'll start off. Thank everybody for being there. I appreciate you all being all here. But I need to ask all of you a question because I don't want to be wasting your time and wasting my time. Can we quickly go around the room, and I want you to introduce yourself and tell me what do you want to gain out of this meeting? I'll take my whiteboard. There'll be a whiteboard, or I'll take a notepad and I'll take notes. So, Mr. So-and-so, they're more interested about the long-term cost. Okay, great. This person's interested in this. This person's interested in impact it's going to do on their own staff. Write it all down. So now what I've done is I've actually just narrowed in what my presentation is going to be like with the help of them. Now I'm able to make the presentation tailored to them and only them. At the end of the meeting, I basically say, Mr. X, you said you want to know about the long-term cost of this. Did I answer your question? Yes, you did. Checkbox. Because again, it's what's in it for them.
Ah, okay. And then like, so really like the biggest part is like really doing your homework and doing your research, knowing the people you're going to be speaking to. But okay, so now expanding on that a bit, sort of that ad lib sort of ability to like, when something comes up that you didn't see or you didn't really rehearse. Cause it's like,
Sure.
when you're first getting into it, right. You might be, practice, like, let's say you're going in for a presentation of, PowerPoint presentation, you rehearse. And then, all of a sudden, one person throws sort of a wrench into your sort of flow and your sort of mojo of how you're running it. How to overcome that, is that more of just like trial and error of like just going through that process, or is there ways to sort of prep yourself for that?
Sure. So there's two ways you could look at that. Number one, if someone just throws out and throws you off your flow, saying, "Hey, thanks a lot, great question. I'm gonna write down here. We're gonna get back to that."
Oh wow. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'll get to it, and look at them in the eye. I promise you, we're gonna get to that. Let me just finish this. We'll get to that. The next thing is, but if you don't have an answer because it's just somewhere out left field, you be blunt, saying, "I really appreciate that question. I don't have an answer for you today, and I don't want to blow smoke up your, you know what. So would you allow me to get that information for you and get back to you?" Yes, great. Okay, can I get your phone number in front of the room so I can call you directly with this information? And if they say no, 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 then either they're not very interested in your product, so it's a good thing. So you're not going to waste time. But two, if they do give you your phone number, your close ratio is going to be quite high.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's another way of asking for the order without, like, it's a soft close. Only someone that's going to be willing to do business with you is going to be able to want to give you their information.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very true. And then when like having that phone number, that's like, instead of having an email or, an associate's number, or like, receptionist number or something like that. It's like you have that direct access to them to, build that
Yeah,
relationship.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I go a step further. So if someone says, "Yeah, don't worry about the phone number. Give me my email. I answer my emails." Okay, great. So we've all been there before. Send me an email. They don't answer. You send another email. They don't answer. Most people just say, they call their manager. "Yeah, it's done." They're ghosting me. I'm not done yet. So I do two things. I'm going to get some lawyers on my ass about this for sure. But I hope your audience loves it. I send an email and I say, "Hey, Max, great meeting you. You asked me to follow up with you. I've been trying to reach out to you. You haven't got back to me yet. Have you given up on this, whatever the project was?" The moment you ask someone if they've given up, they get their back up. You'll get an answer. It may not be the answer you want, but you'll get an answer. And then at that point, you can take them off the list, or they can tell you why they haven't got back to you. Have you given up?
So actually, just touching that a bit more, like that's one thing that I've sort of seen is like, I sort of try and be like, maybe like not too nice, but not like direct, right? Instead of just continue to follow up, and it's just this never ending stream, and you never really get like a closure, right? So actually asking that, that like, have you given up? Like, what sort of results have you seen with that?
Amazing results. I always get a response back. I just need a response back. "Oh, sorry, I've been swamped. I haven't been able to do that because of this, 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 and this." Okay, great. Okay, let's set up a meeting. What day can I come see you? It ghost, 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 ghost. Have you given up? All of a sudden,
You get something back.
you get something back. No one wants to admit defeat.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
So
True.
that's what I'll do. The second thing I'll do is I'll actually make a point. If someone's not getting back to me or whatever it is, I'll go seek them. So what I'll typically do, man, I'm giving you some good nuggets here. I'm actually actually have a book that's coming out that talks about some of this stuff. Typical thing is you can't get a hold of that person via email or what have you. So what I actually do is I'll actually call them. I'll call them. They're not going to answer their phone, but I'm going to leave a voice message. "Hi, so-and-so, we had a meeting. You haven't got back to me. Just want to make sure everything's fine. But tell you what, I'm going to be at your office tomorrow. Between this time and this time." I don't give an exact time. "Between this time and this time. If it's an issue, give me a call back and let me know. If I don't hear back from you, I'll see you between this time and this time." A lot of times they don't even get back to you. They don't check their voicemail, whatever it is. You go back the next day. "We don't have a meeting. Actually, I did leave a voice message for you yesterday, and I said I was going to be here between this time and this time. And I did say in my message that if this was going to be an issue, you can let me know. But I didn't check my voicemail. Okay, that's okay. Do you have a couple minutes now? No. Okay. Well, since I'm here, let's look at your calendar. I got my calendar. Let's book something. You know what? I got a few minutes now. Let's just talk about this now.
So
Control the narrative.
So yeah, what I was gonna say is like that seems a great way to like how I'm sort of relating it to like people my age and university level is like, let's say you're trying to get that job at like, a high prestigious firm or somewhere like that, or you really want to get into, work with this company, right? And you just keep getting stonewalled by receptionists or, the gatekeepers, and then you can't get to like the head person actually doing this. You like if you can sort of find a way to get their phone number or something like that, one if the you can do that. But that seems like a great way to actually sort of stand out from your competition, and like, let's say the recruiting process is actually doing what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And then what were you going to add on to that? So sorry about cutting you off there.
No, that's fine. So that's typically what I do is you got to control the narrative. Remember, no one should treat anybody like shit. You're trying to make a living, just like they are. So they owe it back to you. So as you can see, what I've done here is I haven't said, you haven't bought my product, you haven't done this, you haven't done. All I'm asking for is we communicate. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah,
Because if you're not communicating, how can you be closing?
that's very true. Yeah. So just like getting that dialogue set up is like the crucial part to then building that relationship, right? And sometimes like that's hard to do because like, even though you might understand and that, hey, these guys really need this product, like this is going to work or service and it's going to help their business so much, but personally, the person or the company might be swamped with work and stuff, and actually showing them your product might you know is going to help them a lot, right? So
Mhm.
actually getting in that room and having that conversation and dialogue. So
One thing I will say as well is a lot of times we'll prepare ourselves, we'll have a nice folder with information. And they'll tell us, oh, I can't see you. Leave it with me. I'll get back to you. No, I can't do that. That's you own it. Let that level of intrigue. I've done meetings where I have a folder and I put the folder in the middle. I say there's a folder there and I just keep them. I don't tell anybody to grab them. But the natural response is, oh, there's something there. I'm going to grab it. You opened up, it's empty. There's nothing in here. You're right. Let me finish and I'll give it to you. What am I doing? I'm controlling the narrative. It's my presentation, not your presentation.
okay.
The biggest
Yeah.
mistake a lot of people do is they'll give a folder to someone and you're speaking. Are they listening to you? They're looking down and they're looking and they're looking for the fault or what's the catch? What's the catch? What's the catch?
hmm hmm So what do you do like with ending that presentation is like, the folder and it's empty. Like, do you add something at the end? Like what's usually the follow-up to that?
Well, you just gauge it, right? You just gauge it. And what I do then at that point is saying, okay, because you'll have a good idea based on the questions. If everybody's just completely like, you just know. Again, it's the behavior of sales. It's not textbook. Sales is not textbook. There's no like A to B, B to C, and then oh, C doesn't work, then you have to go back to A. It doesn't work that way. So you have to, and that's why it's so in tune to be in the present with your presentation. You'll know at the end if someone's really excited just by the level of questions. If they're like completely cold, don't give them anything. You might as well just, but you could be honest with them. You could be honest and just say, hey, where do we go from here?
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
Rule number one. Rule number one in sales. If you let the other person feel in charge, like they're in control, you're really in control.
Okay. Yeah. No, and that is a great point. I sort of want to jump now to like the mindset part of the podcast. Are you still good for time for the next 20 minutes?
20 minutes. I can do 10 minutes.
10 minutes? That works great.
Cool.
Yeah. So to quickly jump onto that, pretty much just talking from like your podcast is the 7 to 2 mindset investor podcast, right? And it talks a lot about like pulling yourself from rock bottom, the mental aspect of that. What are some stories that you've heard that have stood out the most during your podcast, that you took the most value away, that you think would be good for this podcast by chance?
Sure.
Like any interesting things, like let's say somebody is, because COVID's affected everybody differently. Let's say somebody's just lost a job, or it's just it's been a very tough year. What's some advice for somebody that's wanting to pull themselves out of like or looking for a way to pull themselves out of sort of like rock bottom?
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. I've been blessed to have so many amazing guests on my podcast, and I've learned so much from each and every one of them, including our conversation today, Max. I'm a guest on your podcast, and I've learned so much about you. You know what? Um, it's everybody has been blessed with one thing, which is the power to choose. We all have the power to choose. And there's a great book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search of Meaning. I'm going to paraphrase this, but the whole idea behind Dr. Viktor Frankl's book, see, he was in, I think, 4 concentration camps. He saw his wife killed, he saw his family killed, he saw his parents killed. He survived living in 4 concentration camps. And at the end of it, he says, it's not the circumstance you're in that defines you, it's how you choose to respond to that circumstance that defines you. 2020, COVID, so was, I mean, it hit the world the way it did. So, and see, I call myself the 7-2 mindset investor. A lot of people say, oh, the 7-2 is because you're doubling your money with interest rate formula. No, that's a nice story, but that's not the case. The reason I call myself the 7-2 mindset investor is the 7-2 is the worst possible hand in poker. When you play poker, you get played a 7-2 hand, you're going to want to fold that hand most times because their likelihood of success compared to pocket, you don't have a chance. But in life, you can't control the hands you're dealt, but you can control how you play that hand. So, 2020, the world got hit with a 7-2. People had a choice. You can use all the shutdown as an opportunity, or you can be there, take a little ball home, and complain about how the world and the government's trying to screw you, and there's a conspiracy theory. We opted to go in the positive light. We turned off our cable. We do not watch news in the house. I shouldn't say that. We watch news just for entertainment if we were bored, simply. Okay? In 2020, I read over 55 books. In 2020, I wrote a book. In 2020, I started a podcast. In 2020, I started a YouTube channel. In 2020, I lost over 30 pounds. In 2020, I joined mastermind events. 2020, I became a mentor. In 2020, I became a coach. In 2020, on the other side, if I didn't make that choice, I'd probably be 60 pounds overweight, unhappy, complaining about the government and saying this is a conspiracy theory, and being a victim. So we have a choice. You can be a victim or you could be a victor. So the mindset piece comes into play. There's a great book. It's called Indispensable by Seth Godin. I'm sorry, not Indispensable. I'm sorry, Linchpin. Getting them all mixed up. Linchpin. And the whole idea is that we have this lizard brain. All of us have this lizard brain. Our bodies are designed to conserve energy. That's how we're designed. We're not designed to expend energy. We're designed to hold back our energy. Hence why a lot of people go with the herd mentality. It's natural. Okay? And we're always fighting this resistance. The resistance is to go with the herd mentality. That's the resistance. You just flow with it. So the reason why I'm so dialed in on my mindset is because I'm continually every day to fight that resistance. Because it's too easy to go back. Is it easier working out or easier just saying, no, I'm not going to do it? And what price you're going to pay for that?
Yeah. And that's something that I've experienced a lot in my own life. And it's super interesting because it's like when you want to expand or you want to take a new risk or you want to go, lose weight or something, you're always, like you're saying, you're always fighting that resistance. It was something that was always interesting. I was like, why is my body fighting something that's going to make me better? Like it's going to make me more happy or it's going to make me more healthier. Right. Which I find really interesting that like, cause I've been looking around trying to find other information about it. Cause it was something that just interested me was like, why, well, like if humans are supposed to like, achieve more and, like we're built to survive and stuff, but it just seems like right now during like with life and stuff. It's just you're always fighting this barrier that seems to always be working against you, of your body saying like, oh, I don't feel like doing that, or I don't feel like exercising today, or I don't feel like, spending an extra 25 minutes learning about this, or an extra hour, doing this or something. So sorry, did you?
No, you said something very interesting. Our bodies are built to survive. Yes, and that's it. They're not designed to excel. They're designed to survive. And you were asking me about, things I've learned on my interviews I've done with people. I actually had Dr. John DeMartini on, and Dr. John DeMartini was actually, have you heard of The Secret? It's an infamous book, infamous, about power of law of attraction. And he was actually one of the speakers on the documentary on Netflix. And he was a speaker on my show, talking about how to attract money and how to attract wealth through mindset. Okay. I had an amazing speaker, Perry Sean, and she talks about the whole neuroscience aspect. And the whole premise is like the only organ that we want to grow in our bodies is our brain, because the brain is plastic. So as much as our brain is encompassed underneath our skull, we can, as we're growing, we're actually firing new synapses of neurons that are firing and triggering. Okay, if you think of it that way. So Perry's husband was diagnosed with dementia. What they found was when he was not being purposeful or focused on his purpose and focusing on his why, his symptoms of dementia came back. And the moments he was purposeful and pushing on his comfort and becoming uncomfortable, his symptoms of dementia dissipated.
That's crazy.
So our bodies are designed to be comfortable and not expend energy. That's why it's so hard to get on that treadmill. But we have to be really dialed in with like I did a podcast on successful habits of high performance individuals. Okay. I actually talked about my own morning routines and my evening routines. Our days, most people that fly, they talk about their anxiety of flying, and it's probably because of the trauma of a really bad takeoff or really bad landing. That's what happens in our day. If we don't have a good takeoff or good landing, our day is completely like we're just chasing. If you go and push snooze on your alarm clock 15 times, well, the fact you already pushed snooze once, you've already broken a commitment to yourself. Now you've done it 15 times. Your whole day is chaos, and you're trying to catch the day. Okay, so you really have to be dialed in. So, for example, I'm wearing this ring on here, and it's called the Aura Ring. Okay, and the way it is I'm not sure if your viewers will see this, but if they can try to understand this, inside the ring there's some sensors. What this is doing, it's a glorified Apple Watch, Fitbit, all that stuff. What it's actually doing is that when I'm sleeping, so it takes all my steps, does all the other stuff the other things do. What this does is it actually monitors my sleep. It looks at my heart rate variability. It looks at my breathing. It looks at my restlessness when I'm sleeping. So when I wake up in the morning, it actually programs and tells me, hey, you didn't sleep well last night. Do your heavy lifting in the morning. When I'm saying heavy lifting, it's not physical, but also mental lifting. Do that in the morning. So there's a lot with the whole mind. And I've thrown a lot at you, my friend, and I apologize. But this is how passionate I am about the whole mindset piece, is that we have to be dialed in, because it's too easy to get pulled back because we're just hardwired that way.
Yeah. No, 100% is like, and one thing I really liked what you said right there was like, pressing snooze on your phone, or like your day starts as soon as you wake up. And if you set that commitment of saying, hey, I'm going to wake up at 5 or 6 or whatever time, right? And as soon as you sort of don't do that, that's sort of like you failed already. And then like you were saying, it's like you're having to catch up, right? And my best, like I've sort of something I've noticed is like my best mornings is like when you wake up early and you get a couple like easy things done, easy tasks done, but you don't waver on them. You don't like just push them aside, like let's say working out or doing some other stuff. So that's something I really liked. I know we're coming to the end here. One thing I wanted to ask was, what was that book again that you said about that was talking about the lizard brain?
Oh, there's a few. So Lizard Brain, that is going to be by Seth Godin, and it's called Linchpin.
Linchpin. Okay. And then
okay.
And then you also talked about the Secret, and I guess is that a documentary on Netflix now, or?
Yeah, The Secret is a documentary on Netflix. There's actually a book on it. And to give you some ideas about the power of the mind in The Secret, they actually did some tests, and what they did was they actually put these it wasn't ECG leads, could be electromyography leads. I don't know, and they actually put them on the muscles of sprinters. And what they actually did was they got the sprinters to get into like a meditative state, as if they were running. And then what they did was they actually had these people run sprints, and they measured this while they were seated in a seated position, meditating as if they were sprinting. The twitching was showing on their because that's how dialed in the body is, which is pretty phenomenal.
That's crazy. So,
So, and, go
sorry.
ahead.
No, what were you saying?
So the whole idea is that it's all in our head. It's all in
Yeah,
our head. That's why a lot of professional athletes, they go in before their games and they're actually meditating, or I should say meditating, or maybe they're just visualizing about how the game is going to be played. So when all they have to do is step on the ice, the game's already done.
that's crazy. That that's crazy that while they were meditating was like their muscles was actually like reacting to that, and it was like just the power of like you're saying your mind and the laws of attraction, right? Of like putting stuff out there and thinking about it and manifestation. um,
Yeah.
but awesome, that's incredible. One last thing quickly, but before we go, we'll two things. One, what was the best book that you sort of came across that talked about this stuff? And two, where can people find out, more about your podcast, your YouTube channel, and more about what you currently have going on? I know you're a real estate investor, so I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that quickly. But yeah, so what book has given you the best results talking about this, and then where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, there's not just one book. All of them bring something, and I'm always learning something new about myself with the reading I'm doing. The book I'd recommend for any sales individual, there's gonna be two books actually, and they're not per se about sales, but it's more about again the behavioral side of sales. Can't Hurt Me by Goggins, David Goggins. Great Audible, actually, highly recommend that one. And then you have Relentless by Tim Grover. Talks about the cooler, the closer, and the cleaner. And the difference between people will say, "Oh, I'm a closer. I'm a closer." A closer is someone that gets called in to close a deal. The cleaner is the person that's like, "Hey, okay, I got it. What's next?" So, for example, I'm a cleaner. All the awards I have boxes of awards. They're sitting underneath my stairs because that's yesterday's news. Yesterday's news doesn't motivate me. My idol is who I'm going to be in 10 years. That's my idol, not the person I was yesterday. There's actually a philosopher from the UK that says, I think his name's Antoine Botton, I think, says, if you're not embarrassed by the person you were 12 months ago, then you haven't learned a thing this year. So I highly recommend Relentless by Tim Grover and Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Okay. Your next question is how can people find me? They can best way to find me is on YouTube. It's the 7-2 Mindset Investor. So the 7-2 Mindset Investor on Instagram, same exact thing. The 7-2 Mindset Investor on Facebook, the 7-2 Mindset Investor on LinkedIn, the 7-2 Mindset Investor. That's how you're going to find me. And I love to connect with anyone. In fact, what I've been doing too, Max, is I've actually been working with individuals that just have a fear of getting on a platform, talking to people, asking questions. So what I do is every Saturday morning, I host a YouTube live with my subscribers that I get people I've never met before, and they ask me questions and saying, I want you to come on the show, ask me the questions. One, gets them out of their comfort zone because that's how we grow. But two, I'll answer their sales questions. I've actually had people call me or set up an appointment with me because they're working on a deal and they want me to help them close it. I'm working on this. I need another outside lens. What am I missing here? So they spent 30 minutes with me and we go through it. I don't care if it's staples, it could be mouses, it could be anything. Okay. The next question you asked me, and lastly, was what I'm doing now. So yeah, so in the real estate world, I mean, we're basically We focus on apartment buildings. We focus on larger multifamilies. We're the connectors. I'm called the apartment guy because I specialize in off-market deals. There's a supply and demand issue. So we really focus on providing a product to investors that they can't normally see because they're too busy themselves. So that's really our focus. We work very closely with realtors. We work very closely with investors. I'm an investor myself. I have a large portfolio of properties. But again, it's being in those rooms, showing up as I talked about before.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Well, thank you for coming on the show, Mark. One thing I did want to ask you quickly is you have a book coming out. Do you want to talk a little bit about that at all, or is it still in the process of or still in work in progress?
Yeah, no, it's essentially what it is. It's going to be about like my top 10 sales hacks. Some of the things we talked about today. And really and I've created this not to monetize off it. It's a gift I want to give to people. Um, and so as soon as it's available, I'll make sure I send it out to you, share it out with your audience. It's a gift for me. And just to give you some insight of just some small things that sometimes we take for granted.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you again, Mark, for coming on the show. It was awesome speaking with you, hearing about the sales and your pretty much knowledge around that, and then also talking about the books and mindset. But yeah, thank you again, Mark, for coming on the show.
No problem, man. My pleasure.